to Transitions again. This is one of the largest events for the Pacific Northwest JET Alumni Association. Please note we are recording this session. Breakout sessions and names will not be recorded, so feel free to turn off your camera if you like. We understand. So PNWJETAA is the JET Alumni Association for Washington State, Northern Idaho, and Montana. This year, PNWJETAA is celebrating their 30th year, so congratulations. I am Jessica Record, the Transitions Coordinator from PNWJETAA. I was an ALT in Sanda Hyogo from 2015 to 2016 on the JET program. This is my 4th year as the Transitions Coordinator, and I'm excited to not only put it online, but have people from all over the US, Canada, Peru, and Japan. So thank you, and we were telling everyone where we're from in the chat, so please feel free to keep using that to communicate with each other. So Transitions is the annual career and networking event organized by PNWJETAA. We bring experience from hundreds of JET alumni and members within our community. While this event is specifically for JET alumni, it's open to anyone who wishes to attend, and it's provided a unique opportunity for individuals who wish to learn more about the JET program or organizations related to the Japanese American community, or Japan American community as well. And this year, we're happily partnered with the United States JET Program Alumni Association, and that is how we've been able to expand it so far. USJETAA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that furthers U.S.-Japan understanding by supporting alumni of the JET program. The mission of USJETAA is to provide support and resource to JET alumni chapters and individual JET alumni throughout the United States in order to strengthen the capacity of the JETAA network, enabling alumni to contribute to the greater U.S.-Japan relationship and bring Japan home by fostering education and understanding of Japanese culture in the United States. Finally, I would like to recognize the Council for Local Authorities and International Relations, or CLAIR, for funding this event, and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation USA for sponsoring this keynote. So I want to thank everyone for making this possible. So next, we are honored to have the Consulate General of Japan in Seattle, Hisao Inagaki, with us tonight to say a few words. Consul General, please.
Thank you. And it's Jessica Record, and JET alumni leaders, and ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm delighted to be here. It's my great honor to join this event, Transitions, Opportunities, Forum, and Networking Expo. I heard that this event started in 1994. The event was branded with the current event title in 2009 and held annually since then. My great thanks to the Pacific Northwest JET Alumni Association for organizing this networking event. The pandemic and needed to continue social distancing have made it a challenge to have this event in person this time. The pandemic has also rapidly accelerated a shift in business culture toward more remote work, virtual or in person. This event has created an effective event for fostering networking. By going online, participants are from across the USA, Canada, and Japan, and Peru, instead of the usual Washington residents. To those of you who have virtually come from far away, welcome to the Northwest and the state of Washington. We hope after this year, other chapters will host their own version of this kind, or that will continue online to reach more people. I would like to say thanks to JETAA USA for coordinating its chapter. Its JETAA chapter already shines. By joining hands with other chapters, you can shine even brighter. 2020 marks the 34th year of the JET program since starting in 1987. As JET, You brought America and American culture to your students and neighbors in Japan. And now, as JET alumni, you continue to promote Japan and the Japanese culture at home in your own towns and communities. For this, you have my deepest gratitude. The JET program and the JETAA are an important part of our mission at the consulate and the embassy. You deepened the mutual understanding between our two countries at a people-to-people level. All of us here have long known that Japan and the US share a very special friendship. We saw its depth after the tragic earthquake and tsunami in 2011. Japan truly appreciates the huge support from the United States as well as around the world. JET alumni in America took action. You organized a relief project, provided huge support, including the 311 Fund, and many JET alumni went to Tohoku as volunteers for the reconstruction effort. Japan will always remember your friendship. I know that the current job market is seeing some tough times, but I send all my encouragement your way, as well as share with you the Japanese idiom, Ishi no ue ni mo sannen, or 3 years on a stone. It means perseverance will win in the end. Even if it is hard, if you continue to be patient and keep your interest, you will be able to achieve your goals. JETAA is Japan's treasure in America. You have my deepest appreciation and my strongest support. Best wishes for a successful expo. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Consul General Inagaki. I can see that you can't hear it, but we're all applauding you. Thank you. And welcome to Seattle. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. And thank you for supporting us. Now I would like to welcome USJETAA's Executive Director, Bahia Simons Lane, to speak.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here tonight and to be supporting this great event. I was a JET in Gunma Prefecture from 2005 to 2007, and I know there are a few Gunma people on here. So for those of you who, if you are from Gunma and I don't know, please put it in the comments so that I know who you are. I would like to say on behalf of the US JET Program Alumni Association, thank you for joining us for this event. I really hope that you find the keynote tonight informative and will benefit from the variety of topics we will be sharing with you over the next week. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the presenters sharing their expertise on so many different topics with the JET community. Those speaking tonight, Consul General Inagaki and PNWJETAA President Samantha Corpuz, and of course, tonight's keynote speaker, Satu Limaye. Thank you as well to the funder of this event, Claire New York, and the funder of tonight's keynote, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, USA. USJETAA is grateful to have a long-standing relationship with both of those great organizations, and their support was essential to making this event possible. It has been wonderful collaborating with PNWJETAA to bring transitions to a virtual modality, and most importantly, making it available to alumni across the country, and even to some of you in Canada and still in Japan, and apparently someone in Peru, which is very cool to me. USJETAA has been focusing on career support and professional development with JETs for the past few years through our webinar series and career counseling and resume reviews. But this year in particular, we know that alumni have great need for career support services due to the economic slump and massive layoffs due to COVID-19. We hope that no matter your current situation, you can find some useful information through this event that will aid you in your pursuits. While I hope that all of you are already familiar with USJETAA, I would like to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about our organization. Our mission is to further US-Japan relations by supporting alumni of the JET program in various ways. We bring alumni together to connect with each other and support the network of more than 35,000 JET alumni in the US, and there are more than 72,000 JET alumni worldwide. If you're not yet a member of USJETAA, please take a moment tonight to sign up at usjetaa.org. There will be a link in the chat. Beyond career support, we help alumni continue to support positive US-Japan relations as citizen diplomats through our partnership with the East-West Center in Washington's Japan Matters for America online resource, and our partnership with Sasakawa USA that provides funding for JETAA chapters to hold regional programs to educate their communities about topics related to Japan. I'm excited to announce our newest program, the JETS on Japan Forum, sponsored by Sasakawa USA. It will feature selected articles of in-depth JET alumni perspectives on US-Japan relations. Please check out our website to learn more about that. We also provide leadership training through programs especially for the dedicated officers, volunteer officers, running the 19 JET alumni associations in the United States, and a micro-grant program for current American JETs that is sponsored by the US Embassy in Tokyo. I know I've already gone on too long, but suffice it to say that USJETAA is dedicated to this wonderful network of JETs, all of us altered by the life-changing experience of the JET program and our love of our adopted home, Japan. So please enjoy Transitions, Opportunities Forum and Networking Expo. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahia. And I do have to thank USJETAA again. Transitions normally uses our local network for PNWJETAA, and it's been wonderful to reach out across the country and bring all these people together. And speaking of which, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Satu Limaye. Satu Limaye is Vice President of the East-West Center, EWC, serving concurrently as Director, EWC in Washington, DC, and the Asia Matters for America initiative. He is founding editor of the Asia Pacific Bulletin. He is also Senior Advisor, Center for Naval Analyses, CNA, and Senior Fellow on Asia History and Policy at the Foreign Policy Institute at Paul H. Nitze School of International Studies. Though not a Japan specialist, Japan has been key to Dr. Limaye's professional work. Until he was named a Henry Luce Scholar and assigned to the JET Institution of International Affairs, assigned to the Japan Institute of International Affairs, JET on the mind, JIIA in Tokyo, Dr. Limaye primarily focused on the Middle East, Lebanon, and Israel, and provided analytical support to Japanese utility companies with civil nuclear power programs. He worked at JIIA for just over 3 years. His publication of Japan include In a Dynamic Asia, co-edited with Yoichiro Sato, Tokyo's Dynamic Diplomacy, Japan and India and Pakistan's Nuclear Tests, Japan's and Southeast Asia, Meeting Regional Demands, and Japan and the India Ocean forthcoming. I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Limaye.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica, and good evening, konbanwa, from Washington, D.C., where it's around just before 9 p.m. And I know people are joining from all over, so welcome to you all. And particularly for, I think, our winner of the longest virtual distance joiner from Peru, welcome. Let me give my good greetings to the newly arrived Consul General Inagaki, based in Seattle, and delighted to be a part of this program. I thought I would follow the instructions that Bahia has given me for this evening to spend 15-20 minutes going through some remarks basically on the importance of Japan to Washington State and Seattle, and to put that importance in the context of Japan's importance in the world, the US-Japan relationship, and the Asia-Pacific region. What a wonderful initiative the Transitions, Opportunities Forum and Networking Expo is in order to connect and create professional development opportunities for the alumni of this very well-known and august program, the JET exchange, Japan Exchange and Teaching Program. I have always been knowledgeable about this since my days in the early 1990s in Japan, and I've met many friends and colleagues, and I have had at least 5 members of my staff, including 2 currently, who are in fact JET alums. So I am absolutely delighted to be with you this evening and feel very honored. I want to congratulate the co-host, Pacific Northwest JET Alumni Association, led by Jessica, and of course USJETAA, led by Bahia Simons Lane. I also want to thank the co-sponsors, the Council of Local Authorities for International Relations and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, USA. Let me tell you why I'm so excited and pleased to join you this evening on a Sunday evening, because there's some real personal connections as well as professional interests. First, I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Simons Lane and with the board chairman and president Akimoto of Sasakawa for many years. Indeed, my organization, the East-West Center, has been working on a special initiative with USJETAA to have JET alumni write articles for publication on our Japan Matters for America, America Matters for Japan website. We also have a publication, which I'll hold up here, which is the dual language publication, but I know there will be a link where you can download this PDF and interact with the material on the website as well. We are working with USJETAA to get articles related to the experience of young Americans on the JET program. Indeed, just 3 days ago, if you could believe, a young JET alumnus, Giovanna Alfanito, wrote an article that's featured on the front page of our site on the sister city partnership between the hometown, her hometown of Okinawa, Santa Cruz, and Shingu City in Wakayama Prefecture. So please check it out. You can go to the site and read that article, and I hope some of you will be inspired to contribute or suggest articles on your own views on Japan and the relationship between our countries. I've also worked hand in hand with SPF on the Japan Matters for America project. And when you look at the cover, you will see that they are in fact partners of ours on this project, and their logo is prominently featured. I'll have a bit more on this. And of course, Claire has been a great source of information and data for our website and our program. We also are working with Sasakawa on a new congressional staff program on U.S.-Japan relations, bringing together officials, congressional staff, and experts on key issues that will shape and determine the future of the alliance going forward. So that's one reason. I've worked with all of you, so I'm just delighted to be back. The second reason I wanted to highlight why I'm pleased to be here is that I went to high school in Seattle. I went to Nathan Hale High School in Seattle. So for some of you who are in the Seattle, Washington State area, I'm doubly pleased that this is a personal connection of the Pacific Northwest Alumni Association, and that you are, many of you are located in and around the great Pacific Northwest. As I always tease my friends in Washington, the real Washington. I, in fact, just was in Seattle a couple of weeks ago to see my family, all of whom live and work in the nearby area. Third, I want to highlight my connection with Japan. It's a 30-year connection, albeit not through a well-known and highly valued JET program like all of you, but a different program nonetheless, and all the more inspiring to me because it brought me in touch with the beautiful and extraordinarily interesting country of Japan. I was assigned there in the early 1990s. I know many of you were perhaps not even born then, but that's the truth. I was there in the early 1990s where I was assigned to work for the Japan Institute of International Affairs, Nihon Kokusai Mondai Kenkyusho, which is, as many of you know, part of the Foreign Ministry of Japan. It's the external think tank and outreach arm. This was supposed to be a 10-month program, but I ended up staying for 3 years, over 3 years at Kokumonken. So as you can imagine, not only did I like Japan and my work and the people and of course the food, I actually began to have a very deep professional connection. And as I always say, Japan was my gateway country for my subsequent career. And so I thought, in the spirit of your work on networking, career development, I would flag that Japan has extraordinary ability to change a young man, well, at that time, a relatively young man who was focused on, just done a PhD on international relations on Middle East and Middle East and that region, moving to East Asia and led by Japan. I have wonderful colleagues and friends there today, and I so long for conditions when we can see each other again in person. And while I would welcome my Japan friends to come visit me here in the Washington area, I even more want to go and eat and travel and see more and learn more about Japan. And finally, I want to say I'm interested in this program because as Vice President of the East-West Center, we are a congressionally funded and congressionally authorized institution to promote education, research, and exchange between Americans and Asians. So this overlaps with my public interests, and I hope you'll visit our website, sign up for our newsletter, and get information because, as I said, many of our programs involve JET alumni and organizations working with Japan, and may offer you good opportunities for linkages with other career and professional enhancement opportunities, fellowships, lectures, publications, and other items that may be of your interest. So let me now turn to the topics of substance relating to what I have been assigned to speak about. And before turning to the relevance specifically of Japan for Washington State and the Seattle area, let me talk about its persisting importance to the United States. And for those of you who've come back on JET programs, or Japan specialists, I sometimes get the question, why are you telling them this? We know we're from Japan. But I want to remind you, because I will be very frank with you in this call. Sometimes with the rise of China, with the rise of other countries, with the rise of other players, we need to put Japan and Japan's place in the international system relating to Asia and with the US in some sort of perspective, because sometimes that perspective can be lost. So I think it's really important at the outset to sort of frame Japan in the context of the broader scheme of things. I, as an international relations analyst, try to view the country. And the basic point that I would say is there's one central message. Amidst all the change and continuing need to calibrate the US-Japan relationship and the alliance, the overall mutual importance of US and Japan and their relationship has increased, not decreased. First, there is no country in the Indo-Pacific region or the world that has the same comprehensive scale, depth, and distribution of importance in terms of trade, investment, jobs, people-to-people connections, tourism, and political military importance across 50 states and 435 congressional districts. There is no country, even if they trade more with us or do one thing more with us, does all of these things at the level, scale, and depth of Japan. And that has not changed. And that continues to be a very vital element of our relationship. Similarly, the US is extremely important inside Japan, as when you check out our publication on JMA, you'll see the United States is important in various ways to many of the prefectures, if not all of the prefectures across a range of interactions. Moreover, the US-Japan relationship has unmatched absolute importance in key areas ranging from military cooperation to US jobs created by FDI. One of my favorite statistics about Japan is while we've been trading and creating jobs between the US and Great Britain for 200 years, ever since we broke away from them and achieved our independence, only really since the 70s or late 60s can we say that a thriving foreign direct investment relationship with Japan. So we've done in 50, 60 years with the US-Japan relationship on job creation, second only to the UK. Imagine that, it took 200 years for the UK to get here and only 50 or 60 for the US-Japan relationship. The US-Japan relationship is also comparative importance when measured by other partnerships. And I know that as diplomatically, one should not compare others, but I would say that it's just a reminder of sometimes the attitude I get or I overhear which is, you know, Japan is not as powerful, not as important as it once was. And I keep saying, look at the data, look at the numbers, and take a very careful look before making such assessments. And increasingly, I would note that, and I say, oh, I will speak more about this, increasingly the U.S.-Japan relationship has a connective importance. It's not important only on its own terms or vis-a-vis each other's, but the U.S.-Japan relationship is connecting with others in the region, including India, Australia, and other countries in Southeast Asia. Hence, our relationship is broadening, deepening, and being scaled out. The numbers are just staggering, and I know it's Sunday evening or Monday morning, but I want to go through a few of them just to highlight a couple of really big things. First of all, there's really high-level public opinion support in both countries for the relationship. Yes, it oscillates a little bit. It goes down under certain administrations and up in other ones. But you know, it tends to hover up in the high 70s. And I challenge anyone on this call to name few things, except perhaps a pop star, a rock star, or a movie star, who have such high ratings in the 70s on any political or economic issue. Japan creates more US jobs than any other Indo-Pacific country. The US is the top destination for Japanese investment and the largest investor, and the US is the largest investor in Japan. The US sends more students to study in Japan than any other Asian country. And Americans represent, as you well know, over 50% of all JET participants annually. Japan and the US share more sister city-state relationships with each other than with any other country around the world. It's really quite staggering. Japan also remains a towering partner amongst other countries in the region. It's the third largest US trade partner in the Indo-Pacific region, first among Indo-Pacific countries as a source of foreign direct investment, which has increased 100% over the last decade, third most significant destination for US foreign direct investment going to Asia. It's the #1 source of greenfield investment from the Indo-Pacific, some 1,900 projects across 47 states. And it's second in terms of direct flight routes between the US and the Indo-Pacific. Though I will say, during the pandemic, obviously that's not true, but people are not flying almost anywhere. And we've been trying to find the numbers of post-pandemic flights. And I would say, willing to wager a bet that Japan still, even in these lower flight conditions, still is amongst the top destinations, even though that is quite limited during the current conditions. But what of Washington State? What of Seattle? So I was asked to address these specifically, so let me give you some highlights. It will be no surprise to many of you that Washington State is among the United States' leading internationally oriented states across many measures, indices, and factors. One such measure is done by the New Economy Index, which ranks Washington State third among US states for its innovation and internationally oriented. For example, Washington ranked 12th among US states for trade dependence to state GDP, just under 24%. Seattle Business Magazine article in 2019 that I was reading in preparation for my remarks stated that 20% of the Washington economy is reliant on international exports. The UW, the University of Washington Huskies, for those of you who don't know,
it's 21 hours.
Ranked 14th in 2018-19 for international students. And of course, there are many other state and private universities across the Pacific Northwest, including in this Washington State, that makes it one of the top sources of international students. Washington, of course, as you all know, has incredible businesses from high tech to biomedical to engineering to, of course, software and big transport. Think Boeing and Microsoft and others. So you know there are world-class companies. And in all of these international connections, Japan is staggeringly important. Washington is third among US states with Japanese American population. It's third, Japan is third for the destination for Washington State exports and imports, suggesting a close intercorrelation of supply chain and integration, which is really important. It's not a mismatch between exports and imports. And Washington State ranked third for US exports to Japan. Japan also ranks third for Washington State employment by foreign-owned companies, just behind UK and Canada. And again, you can think what I said earlier, that UK has been around for 200 years in its relations with the United States, and Canada is next door. Japan is across the ocean, and it still ranks third in terms of creating state employment. That's pretty staggering. We estimate in our latest analysis that 60,000 jobs in Washington State depend on exports to Japan, either directly or indirectly supported jobs, according to the methodology we use. And for Seattle, where I grew up, as I said, and went to high school, Japan is critical there too. The 7th Congressional District, which covers much of this area, but not all of the area, is heavily engaged with Japan. It also has the 3rd highest Asian American population. Universities in the area earn $12 million from students from Japan. There are 3 sister city relationships, and on and on and on. There are many cultural, people-to-people, ad hoc connections, cherry blossom festivals, etc., as you all know. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling to be engaged in these activities. I better stop here in terms of these data points because it's 9 o'clock, but I do have a few more minutes to talk about some big issues. And I was given 20 minutes and I'm at 14 minutes, 6 seconds. So I'll move rapidly along. So I've talked about some numbers, but I want to give you some context behind the number, what I call the narrative beyond numbers, and put it in some context. Look, we're in a particularly weird, odd, difficult, challenging situation in 2020. But if you step back and think what was happening 6 months before the pandemic broke out, just think where Japan was in terms of its context. It was a remarkable and momentous moment for Japan, the new Reiwa era, a fortunate or auspicious peace and harmony. And guess who? Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga had announced the Reiwa era precisely at that time. And now, of course, last week, he was named the Prime Minister of Japan, succeeding Prime Minister Abe. There was imperial succession last year. There was hosting of the G20 summit, and there was the World Cup. So Japan was re-emerging as a major powerhouse on so many fronts, and so just before the pandemic broke out. My point in reviewing this is to make this point, that Japan was perched on a platform of significant transition and renewed global prominence, and those fundamentals have not changed despite the pandemic. So where are we going now? I think 3 sets of big changes are ones that I would flag. Global changes, changes in the region, and changes for the US. As you know, 30 years ago, when the JET program was established, China had just crushed the pro-democracy protesters. The Berlin Wall had fallen. Europe was shaken to its core, but the EU was on the cusp of getting stronger. North America was putting together the North American Free Trade Agreement, and Asia was led by a strong and powerful Japan in the so-called flying geese model of economic development. In general, there was great optimism. Unipolarity, democracy, globalization, the end of history. Today, it is fair to say that many of these conditions that 30 years ago when the JET program began have changed in somewhat more challenging ways. China has emerged as a major power and challenger to many of the systems. The Soviet Union collapsed, but Russia remains a worthy challenger in Europe and elsewhere. The North American Free Trade, and the Indo-Pacific Economic Integration projects have more questions than answers surrounding them. You think of Brexit, the UK leaving the EU, think of American questions about leaving the TPP. In other words, globalization and globalism are under challenge. In this context, I always say, the very rise of Asia, including Japan, that some people think is a negative factor and makes Japan less important, is not the case in my assessment. As I put it, it is a case that it is no longer a case of Japan alone, but Japan among. And this does not, as some suggest, reduce the importance of Japan, but rather increases the importance of a vibrant, powerful, strong Japan in a rising region. Japan is ranked third in the Lowy Institute Asia Power Index. It's still the third largest economy, and the US and Japan maintain still a very robust alliance. Trust ratings for Japan are nearly 70% in the region. So let me conclude, because I have just a couple of minutes, of where we are today. I believe that for all of the conditions prevailing, the difficulties, the challenges, overall, the US-Japan alliance is strong. The US-Japan relationship is generally healthy, but it must be admitted that there is a sense of anxiety and drift given current evolution of the United States, pending the outcome of our elections, and the trajectories and policies we decide to go forward with. Second, there is generally good convergence between our governments about key issues that face the region, even if there are inevitably particular differences, both of substance and of emphasis. Third, there is primarily convergence about regional challenges from North Korea, from China, and other issues. In this context, it is my view that the security alliance is critical. And I think that we need to have a new generation of people such as you who are interested in, working on, or supportive of the alliance. Indeed, while not all of you will go into diplomatic service or military service, by business, by personal relations, cultural relations, travel, and etc., you will maintain the health of this overall relationship. The US-Japan relationship has lots of work to do, but given the strong base of the JET program and other programs, I believe very much that we will be able to work in a forward-looking manner with a new generation of people dedicated to a healthy, amicable US-Japan relationship. Indeed, I will close by saying, it is my assessment that the most important years of the US-Japan relationship lie ahead, not behind us. Though I am realistic in saying that appreciating and acting on that assessment is a challenge that for me at least has been inspiring rather than a burden. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate today, and I wish you the best in your networking and onward ventures. Please do utilize the resources of the East-West Center, which is very much dedicated to working with our partners such as the Pacific Northwest Jet Alumni Association, U.S. Jet Alumni Association, Sasakawa, Claire, and others to make a strong, healthy, and vibrant US-Japan relationship. Good evening, and thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Limaye. I would like to offer, we have time for maybe one or two questions. If anyone has any questions, please throw them in the chat or use the raise hand function. Since there are so many of us, I won't be able to see you if you go like this. So I'm going to give everyone a moment to decide if they have a question. And I just have to say, I feel so inspired now, actually. So thank you very much. I think it was uplifting for the rest of this week and hopefully continued beyond that. All right.
No questions at all?
No questions at all. I'm going to give everyone 10 more seconds just in case. I know some people have long ones.
No, that's fair enough.
All right. I think there are no questions. Oh, yes, Bahia, please.
Yes, my question is, so if the most important years of the US-Japan relationship are ahead of us, what could that possibly look like? And how do you see the US election playing into that?
Well, leave it to Bahia to ask me the most, one of the most pertinent and sensitive questions. I want to reiterate that the East-West Center, of course, is a congressionally mandated and partly congressionally funded institution, so we take zero positions on politics or political matters. But you asked me a question about what I think about the alliance. And I'll say two things. One, what is extraordinary to me is for all of the other dissonances in our current US ferment, in our current domestic life, in our politics, in our culture, there is simply no debate about the importance of the US-Japan relationship in either the Republican or the Democratic Party. Indeed, if you look at the support for the US-Japan relationship, both by resolution and by action in both houses of our US Congress, if you look at the executive branch and the bureaucracy support for the US-Japan alliance, it is quite uniformly strong. That does not mean to say that two countries as big, second and third largest economies in the world won't have differences on particular issues. But what it does mean is, given how many things our country is currently debating, there's really no debate about keeping the US-Japan relationship or the US-Japan alliance. So that's point one. Where do I see it going? I think that the US-Japan relationship is, as I said, entering the more important phases now, because some of the clear lines that shaped the relationship during the Cold War are not so pertinent. Obviously, we do not have the same kind of Cold War, the same kind of threats. And the rising challenge of China, let us be frank, is a complex one. For the United States, we have 350,000 students from China. It's an important trade partner. We have all kinds of relationship, but we also have big differences on everything from values to security to intellectual property theft. And Japan has serious concerns, as expressed by their government in their official papers, white papers and activities. And yet, Japan too has important trading, economic, and regional considerations with China. So the lines not being so neat require the US and Japan to be much more adept and nuanced about managing the China relationship. It will be a central feature as we go forward. And given the fluidity of the international system and the changes in economics, our alignment is going to have to be more important because the two countries are so important to the region and to the world. So I hope that is helpful in expressing some of my off-the-cuff thoughts on how we go forward and the place of Japan and the US-Japan relationship in our current politics.
Excellent, thank you. And if you don't mind, we do have one more question. I'm sorry, Lila. Well, we'll see, but at least I saw Sadie's first. Are there any industries or fields of work between Japan and America that are growing and will be needing people with JET alumni skill sets?
Yes, I want to be very frank. I am certainly not an expert on all of the fields of the two largest economies in the world, but I will hazard a guess in some areas that I am seeing. First, as we deal with a changing globalization structure, meaning the diversification, diffusion of supply chains, one of the areas that I see as going to be more and more important is how to handle technology. And that includes every kind of technology, both sensitive and less sensitive, and how to protect that technology. So I see a combination of Japanese language skills, knowledge of Japan, knowledge of Japanese companies, combined with an understanding of technology to be vitally important. In my own history of career history, as I mentioned, I started working out in the civil nuclear energy field, working on low enrichment issues for civilian nuclear power reactors. And many of these reactors were owned by Japanese utilities. So the knowledge of a technical area combined with some knowledge of Japan was very useful. So I would urge, as I always urge my graduate students or my, if you will, sometimes people who are coming to me for advice, I say, please combine your expertise in a language and culture with some functional expertise. That can be law, it can be medicine, it can be business, it can be technology, it can be art, film, fashion. But if you combine them, it gives you a double whammy in the marketplace because you have a core functional expertise and you have an expertise in the culture, particularly if you want to sustain working in the US-Japan space. So that's what I would say on the industries. And then there's another question here too, is Jessica.
Yes, I think we have time for Lila's. How does Japan fit within the Asian sphere of influence? Does the way the world is shifting affect the way Japan and its strong relationship with the US affect Japan's relationship with nearby Asian countries?
Well, you're asking one analyst. I'm sure people have many views, and some of my colleagues would agree and some others would disagree. It is my understanding that Japan considers its alliance with the US to be a cornerstone of its approach towards the region. And we certainly consider our alliance with Japan to be a cornerstone of our approach to the region. So we do not make a fine distinction between our relationship with Japan and the rest of the region. And I think probably Japan sees a US relationship as integral to its ability to deal with the region, whether that be China or North Korea or South Korea or Southeast Asia. And I would say that in recent years, Japan has played an extraordinary role, in my view, of keeping liberal international orders alive. For example, when we got out of the TPP, Japan chose to proceed with the CPTPP trade agreement, pulling together Singapore, New Zealand, Chile, Australia, miss a country here, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. In other words, Japan has been able to maintain an alliance with the US, but work with its regional partners on this trade agreement. It's also been working with Australia and India and the US on the so-called quadrilateral security consultations. So to my view, it's best not to think of these as divided issues, but rather integral issues. And as I said, as Asia's rise continues, the integrative aspect of the US-Japan alliance will help connect these relationships, both economically and security-wise.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Limaye, and for everyone's questions. I'm sorry that we don't have more time, but again, I want to thank you for your time and Consul General Inagaki for joining us. And I know that it's getting late, so please take care of yourselves. We are going to be moving into our networking portion for the session. So if you'd like to take a small break or grab something to drink, please do. I'm going to also really quick throw, not that link in the chat. I want you to know that we finally have our national J-link up. We have many different people represented from different chapters because sometimes it's hard if you go on LinkedIn or something and you're trying to find people, you don't know where to go. We have the J-link there. So just wanted to do that. And for how this network will work, we're going to utilize both the chat and breakout rooms. So if you want to connect with other attendees outside of the event, please share your LinkedIn information or any other information to connect with you in the chat. We'll share a copy of the chat at the end of the conference, so don't worry, it won't get lost. As for the breakout rooms, we're going to break out into rooms with about 4 people each, and they'll be about 15 minutes long. After the Kanpai, you'll be invited into a breakout session. You'll return here and then get scrambled up into a new one. So I know this is going to be kind of a quick thing, but please don't be shy. Introduce yourself and get to know each other. But first, as always important, I would like to invite our PNWJETAA President, Samantha Corpez, to lead us in our Kanpai. Sam?
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you very much to Consul General Inagaki and to Dr. Limaye for your comments and keynote today. On behalf of Pacific Northwest JET Alumni Association, we're so thankful for your support and of course for your very insightful and engaging keynote, Dr. Limaye. I was particularly, when you mentioned gateway country for your future career, like that really resonated with me, just from a, you know, I'm sure all of us can understand that feeling of how different the Japan experience and how the JET experience really shaped where we are today, and especially within their career and in other aspects, I'm sure, as well. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I guess I'll try to keep my comments short, but my name is Samantha Corpus. I am the Pacific Northwest JET Alumni Association president, and I was a Gunma ALT, just like Bahia, from 2012 to 2016, and actually departed not from Seattle, but from Vancouver, BC. So I'm also, I guess you could call me another like Canadian infiltrator of transitions this year. My first transitions event was in 2018, where I attended as a volunteer with PNWJETAA. And I wasn't really going in there with any kind of expectation of what I would gain for myself. They needed hands, Jessica needed hands, and so I was there. And I actually, in that short day, came away with so much knowledge and enthusiasm and just this great motivation to really find a way to tell my story, to make that, what Dr. Limaye said about combining my expertise from Japan with something else into a future career. And that, I think, yeah, it was such a special experience. And that coming from a volunteer, I hope it means something to all of you, because I can only imagine for the people who were actively looking for work at that time, what an important time it was. So thank you to Jessica and Lynn, our transitions coordinators, and thank you to Bahia and USJETAA for allowing us to expand across the world, it seems, in 3 continents. I'm very, very honored and excited to be part of this, and I look forward to a really engaging and eventful week. And so without further ado, if everyone has a glass or a mug or whatever you choose to drink this evening or this morning, wherever you are in the world, to all of you, JET alumni, JET friends, supporters of all JETs in the U.S.-Japan relationship, here's to you, and here's to a fantastic transitions event. Kanpai.